All right. So yeah, you're talking with the head of HR, and why are we looking at Cursor? Oh, interesting. What's Cursor? Many of you may know Cursor from your engineering teams. Cursor is an integrated developer environment that can be used to as an AI for building and improving software. At Zapier, increasingly, we're using Cursor, Claude Code, tools like this to create what we're going to call today a digital twin. This is a fairly holistic AI companion that combines three capabilities into basically one pane of glass, one companion or digital twin that you can use to power a lot of daily work in almost any role in the organization. What are the three capabilities that are embedded in here? Let's start on the left-hand side. On the left-hand side, you basically see a folder directory. This is knowledge. Part of what makes this digital twin useful is that it has context. We talked about context. We were talking about MetaView earlier. This context layer is essential. Agents, for example, really benefit from speedy, but also somewhat focused context on the job at hand. This folder system is my current attempt at combining knowledge about Zapier, the company. What are our goals? What's our strategy? What's our product all about? It includes context about the work of the people team at Zapier. It includes context on our AI transformation work, which I'm accountable to at Zapier. It also includes, and I'll unpack a folder here, some context about me. So here's a markdown file with a version of my README, which is just a lot about me, my personal values, my leadership principles, and so on. Here are my goals for the first 6 months of this calendar year. Here's a little bit more information about the AI transformation part of my job at Zapier. And then I also have a basically set of instructions for my overall digital twin. Talks a little bit about who I am, my job, talks a little bit about where I expect help from my digital twin. And these are really just ground setting pieces of context on which I can do a whole range of work right here on a single screen. So the first of the three capabilities that makes the digital twin work is the context layer. The second ingredient is intelligence. And for intelligence, I'm using, a variety of LLMs. One of the neat things about something like Cursor is you can use any number of LLMs, right? Some are fast and cheap and good for certain tasks. Some are slow, methodical, and very expensive and have amazing superpowers for other tasks. It's really useful, I find, to be able to mix and match. And the digital twin can actually, based on what we're trying to do together, throttle up or down and target a model that's just the right fit for the job at hand, which is great for power, but also for cost control. That's the second capability, the intelligence layer. The third capability is connections, right? We don't do our work just in one application. We do it in Google Docs or Microsoft products. We do it in Slack and Microsoft Teams. We do it in Jira and Databricks and HubSpot and Salesforce and you name it. And so the third capability that makes this digital twin work is a series of MCPs. MCPs are model context protocols. They're just really elegant ways of connecting something like this digital twin to a variety of applications and data sets so that they can be called upon and also actioned on, all from this single digital twin. And so here, for example, if I go to tools and MCPs, you'll see I have 4 in particular set up right now. The first is Databricks, which can query out to all of Zapier's core data assets, how folks use the product and company performance, financials, and so on. Granola, that's an AI meeting note taker. They have an MCP that they just dropped last week. I record most all of my meetings in Granola. So if I want to query for feedback on how I'm showing up in meetings, if I want to incorporate meeting notes into a broader analysis I'm doing, I can just call that straight from this digital twin. The third one is called Ordinal. That's for social media. That's a great teammate for that. And the fourth one, no surprise, is Zapier. So Zapier has connectors to over 8,000 applications, and using Zapier MCP, I can call upon any of them right from my digital twin. I actually don't even need to go into the core Zapier product to do a lot of this work. So 3 core capabilities for this notion of a digital twin. The first is context. The second is intelligence. And the third is connectors.
Brandon, just on the context, just a quick question from a chat. Like, did you create all this manually? Did you sit with an LLM to help you draft these documents? What's the quickest way to get all the context you need to the quality you need here?
It's an excellent question. I used a a skill. So a skill, by the way, is actually kind of a concept, not just like a colloquially like calling it a skill. A skill is a protocol developed by Anthropic that's open source and is becoming a standard for these like basically like very well packaged instruction sets for getting things done with AI. And at Zapier, we have a skill that we created actually with an LLM to basically have a golden path for setting up these file systems or these context layers. And so now if you could basically just invoke this skill in a place like Cursor or Cloud Code and actually walk you and your team through how to set up the context layer for your work. Some of this also operates at the company level. So I can show you right now, I think this will mature over time in the broader industry, but right now, a lot of company context is literally in a well-maintained Google Drive. And I shortcut to this entire Google Drive in my digital twin. So you can see that company folder up here. That's just a shortcutted right into my own digital twin. So anything that's updated here in this company folder automatically is available in my digital twin. So that's the way that we're developing the context layer. Also requires, by the way, we have a lot of talent leaders here. It's a great example of role redesign. We have a brilliant knowledge management leader at Zapier named Elise. Well, you better believe her job's changed a lot just over the last couple of months from, primarily, maintaining and improving things like our intranet to helping us standardize the company-wide context layer so that it can be truly usable by digital twins and by agents. Actually, interesting story about what's possible for the people on people teams these days. The intranet that Zapier uses for a lot of our company knowledge it's not very readable by things like our digital twins. And it's not very readable by agents. And that's in part because these agents have especially speedy access to knowledge when it's written in Markdown. And this particular third-party application that we use for our intranet doesn't have like an API that converts things to Markdown and so on. Elise, here at Zapier, again, a member of our people team, not an engineer, not an IT expert, she wrote an application last week that automatically converts all knowledge on our internet into Markdown in a way that is readable by digital twins, like what we are looking at right now. And that now automatically converts to Markdown any new knowledge posted to our internet from last week forward. And, the interesting thing, Joe and Jason, she figured that out in 24 hours. It's just remarkable. And so I share that story to make the point that, any of the goodness that we're demoing and looking at today, there's a talent transformation story underneath almost all of it, right? Not just new tools, not just use cases, but meaningful shifts to the jobs of a lot of our people on our teams. So with that being said, we've talked a lot about this notion of digital twin in the setup, right? We've talked about the three capabilities, the context layer, the intelligence layer, and really the connectors layer. Now let's talk about what we can do with it. I'll give you several examples to start with. Here's an agent that I set up. This is the first thing I built for my digital twin. I call it my weekly accountability copilot. And what my weekly accountability copilot does, in fact, I won't even tell you. I asked it earlier today, and I'll show you what it says. So this is one of the amazing things about using AI, right? Is if you want to learn about it, the best way to do it is to just ask it questions. And especially if you have the context layer set up, it's pretty incredible what it can teach you. So just for the purposes of our time today, I'd actually just ask it, say, hey, we set up this agent, just describe how it works. And so you can read it right here, right? What does it do? It's a cursor-based agent that tracks your progress against your goals, provides coaching, and delivers a weekly report. It runs entirely in Cursor. It tracks 3 goals. What are these 3 goals? How does it know what those are? Well, it knows my goals. Come back to the personal context folder. Those are my goals, right? It's able to read those. It understands what's in these folders. And so I didn't have to point it back to my goals when it was setting up this weekly accountability copilot. You got a little flow chart here of what it does. So every week it's collecting relevant data from Slack, my Google Calendar, my meeting notes, and Coda, which, Coda, Notion, it's like, kind of like a knowledge source project management tools. And then it maps that back to my goals and how I'm working to show up as a leader vis-a-vis my README document, which it also has access to. And it's basically looking for gaps, right? It's like, Brandon, you say that this is really important. You're being gold on this, but I checked your calendar last week and you spent basically no time on it. Scrutinize that. Think about that, right? And then it creates the weekly accountability report in 3 formats. And that's what you see on the right-hand side, which is like really small, make it bigger. One, a local markdown file. So then I have this longitudinal data that it can also coach me on. That could look like, Brandon, for 5 out of the last 6 weeks in your meetings, like you, when someone asks you a question, you're giving like a somewhat obtuse answer, like find a way to just answer, like lead with the answer to the question, provide 1 or 2 bullets, and then pass it back, right? So the meeting can go on. So longitudinal coaching is really a kind of a superpower of AI coaching. It just doesn't forget stuff, connects the dots in really powerful ways. Also puts the output into a Google Doc, and it sends me a Slack to let me know, that it's run the report every week, and it provides me a synthesis. So here's a example of that synthesis from last week. This does a stoplighting on core goals. Here are things to pay attention to. Here's a place on Slack where it looks like someone's waiting for a decision. Maybe you need to escalate it or just pop in and give people some guidance, and so on. So that is weekly accountability coach, created entirely in Cursor using natural language and connectors, right? So we're using Zapier MCP here to actually get that data from places like Slack, my calendar, and Coda, and then Granola MCP to pull my meeting notes. Let's do another one. So for a lot of people teams, change management is one of the core things that we do with the company. It's really important. The core frameworks for change management are pretty straightforward, but in practice, like staring at it on a sheet of paper is very different than like putting it into practice. If you're reorging a team or acquiring a company or, shipping a brand new product that sales has to, learn about and take to market, like that's all a pretty big deal. We want to be better at this. How can a digital twin help? So last week I did this. So, we talked earlier about the work of Elise on the people team at Zapier and how she now has put all company knowledge from our intranet in Markdown. So here's what I was able to do. What I wanted to do is create a skill. That's one of those, kind of standardized protocols for like, getting something done. I wanted to create a company-wide change management skill that anyone could evoke when they're leading through change, big or small, and just get really practical guidance personalized to exactly what they're trying to do so that they could just get down to it and lead through that change really effectively. Wanted to create a skill. So what we're looking at right now is how that worked. So I said, hey, in the HQ folder, that's the folder where the company intranet knowledge has been converted to Markdown. I said, hey, there are Markdown files of different knowledge sources. Can you find a file on the topic of change management? I know that our source of truth for how we want to do changes Zapier is on our intranet. So I also now know it's in this folder. What happens next? It's looking. It says, hey, the most relevant file looks to be this one. And thankfully, I don't have to click on it. It provides a summary of what's on the page. I can tell right away by looking at these bullets that that's the content I'm looking for. Would you like me to do anything with it? Well, yes, I'd like to create a skill based on this content such that any Zapier employee can deploy it and get strong coaching on how to lead change. I have a different skill I invoked, story for another day on the name of it. It's called Kevin. Kevin is my review skill, and this slows the LLM down. This has special instructions to apply just like extra rigor to what the LLM is doing on my behalf. So I'm invoking Kevin to create a change management skill for Zapier. In the true agentic fashion, it creates a checklist of how it's going to approach that. It goes to work, it goes to work, it goes to work. It invokes Kevin to scrutinize it and make it better, scrutinizes it further. It then
Did
provides
you
a
have a
score.
Kevin in your past that was just extra critical of you, Brandon? Like,
It's Kevin from The Office.
got it. Okay.
Yeah. It scores it to make sure like it's Kevin approved, and then it publishes it. So we have this skill called leading change. And then we're doing this, actually, ironically, all of Zapier will be creating this type of digital twin over the next 4 weeks. That's a big change for the company. So then in this window, I invoked this new skill. Let me show you the workflow. Here's a document. It's going to be small. You don't really need to read it. Where the working group that wants to help every Zappian make a digital twin was talking about what this would be and how we would do it. That's great. That's not a change management plan though. So what I did in my digital twin is I said, hey, go find this Google Doc, and using the leading change skill that I just created, that's what we're looking at here, right? / leading change, create a change management plan. And don't add it to any docs yet, just put it here so we can look at it together. And so it finds the file It invokes the leading change skill that we just created, and it creates this change management plan. And then eventually, if I do have it, put it in a Google Doc. The quality of this output is very high. It is remarkably high. But the most important thing is because this skill can be deployed across the company, anyone can instantly have access to this skill for any type of change management that they're working through in their organization. But this would take a day easily for a skilled practitioner to create. It's exhaustive. It has the messaging. It has a change analysis using the SCARF framework, which is the core change management framework that we use at Zapier. It anticipates blockers, has a point of view on the communications waterfall. It has a manager briefing kit, which is a standard that we have for change. We also have a tradition called the root FAQ, which is questions that folks have but might be too polite to ask. We try to proactively name and answer to those when we're doing change. And because we created the context layer, and because we have these kind of extensible skills, this is now the work in a digital twin of less than 10 minutes. So I'll pause there just to see if anything came up in the chat on this one.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few questions more on the starting point, but I wanted to show the use cases in case it answers some, like people around, like, how do you get this skill created? Like, is this something you need to build from scratch? Can you take open source ones from other folks? And then I think you answered the second part, which is about like, this looks really impactful, but how do you scale this for everyone across the org, not just the minority to have like a digital twin, for example?
Okay, both great questions. We'll answer them in order. There are actually a variety of skills available online. Again, one of Zapier's AI principles is with AI, you can delegate a bunch of the work, but you can't delegate the accountability. So my recommendation on like borrowing skills from outside your organization is just make sure you read them very carefully. Because once you invoke them, it will do whatever the skill says. And if you haven't read it, it may do things that you're not expecting. But yes, I mean, like Lenny's from Lenny's podcast, for example, he shipped a library of skills based on things that had come up in interviews that he had done over the last 6 months or so. That's a fairly high quality library that we've actually imported. But yeah, there's Zapier has its own skills library now. I'll show you what that looks like. So you see we have a overall coaching skill that maps to our core coaching framework for the company. We talked about that skill that'll help you set up that file system earlier. That's it. Create Team Brain. That's the one that steps you through creating your own context layer. For SEO content, there's basically an agent that helps our marketing folks with that. There's a folder full of Lenny's skills, like we talked about earlier. One of the fun things about this, though, is we have a skill in here that helps you find your next best skill. There it is. This is one I created this one last week. And to the question someone asked earlier, you can simply describe what you are trying to get done and have your digital twin walk you through how to create the skill. Then it will create the skill. You can read it, you can edit it if you need to, and then you can post it wherever your company wants its skills to be available. So this is another example of where it's like, gosh, how do I do that? It's like, just ask, right? And you don't even have to have your digital twin set up. You can ask ChatGPT, you can ask Claude, like you can ask any LLM how to do this because this protocol is becoming standardized. You can get help in, Gemini or whatever the case may be. And then to the second question around, well, how can you do this across an entire organization? Well, that's actually something Zapier's figuring out right now. You can see from what we've looked at today that we've already started setting the stage for like the company-wide context layer. We clearly already have tools available. Folks have access to things like Cursor or Claude Code to set up their digital twin environment. We naturally have the connectors, right? That's our business, right? Is helping folks automate work and use AI across applications. So we use Zapier MCP extensively. But the rest of it, coming back to the work that a lot of us do, people work, talent work, is human enablement. Right? Setting up sessions to get folks, configuring everything we've looked at today can take a few hours. So making sure that folks have the time, the space, and the enablement to do that. But like with a lot of things, like we try to treat this like a product launch. Part of what'll make this work is getting folks their first or second skill that could really supercharge their work lit up immediately. Because what we find, I think what a lot of us have seen over the last couple of years is when someone gets that like wow moment, the intrinsic motivation spikes and folks will run through, a proverbial brick wall to figure out, how to create that next wow moment for themselves with AI.